Greetings, fellow travelpreneurs, and welcome to another episode of the Travelpreneur Club, where I interview inspiring travelpreneurs from around the world and share with you their story of starting, launching, and growing their own location-independent business. Now let's get started. So today I feel honored to have Kevin Martin with us. Kevin is the founder of TexAdmissions.com, where he helps clients with the long and difficult process of getting accepted into the University of Texas at Austin. Kevin assists his clients with perfecting their resumes, their essays, applications, and helping them increase their odds to getting accepted to the university of their dreams. By finding a demand in this niche, Kevin has positioned himself as the go-to consultant and has built a significant amount of his business through word of mouth. Along with his primary business of TexAdmissions, Kevin also helps non-native English-speaking friends apply to English programs around the world. These businesses allow him to travel freely while building and growing his business. Kevin, welcome to the Travelpreneur Club.
Hey, thanks for having me, Drew.
So I gave my audience, a brief insight into your background, but tell us a little more about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. So I was originally from Dallas, Texas. I graduated from the University of Texas at Austin in 2011. I finished at the top of my class, and I had a few majors in government history and the humanities honors program. And through the humanities program, I crafted my own area of research in conflict and genocide. And through my academics, I was able to go abroad a few times, and that was the first times I was exposed to other cultures and began thinking of this process of living a life abroad. I spent some time in both Bosnia and Rwanda, where I worked with genocide survivors in a human rights capacity. And then I continued sort of this idea and ethic of service after graduating. I worked for the University of Texas at Austin in the Office of Admissions from 2011 until the beginning of 2014. In 2014, I completed a Fulbright grant, which is a kind of a cross-cultural exchange between the United States and many other countries. I worked in a rural area of northeastern Malaysia, teaching English at a low-performing government school. So I lived in Besut, Terengganu as sort of my base for 2014, and I was able to explore, most of the places one would want to go to in Southeast Asia. And then in 2015, I wanted a much more unstructured experience. I took a one-way plane ticket to Cancun, Mexico, to go to a friend's wedding in Cancun. And then about a month after that is when I launched my website. And so for the last year, pretty much April of last year is when I began this business, and I started and launched the entire thing while being overseas. And so, so the last year has been spent building the business and traveling around the world. That's
awesome, man. Yeah, you have quite a story. You've had a lot of your back experience in education, and helping others, which I think is very respectable. So I'm sure you have an idea of kind of what a travelpreneur is already, but I'd like to give you our definition. So a travelpreneur is a traveling entrepreneur that believes in building location-independent businesses that allow them complete control over their lifestyle. So what do you do exactly that makes you a part of the Travelpreneur Club?
I think for me, it's obviously this definition of freedom where you can control your own lifestyle. And I think I also like a negative conception of freedom, negative insofar as I don't have to do things that I don't want to do. So I really pride myself on not having to respond to emails or go to meetings or go to an office that I don't want to go to, or spend time with people or locations that I'm not particularly satisfied with. And so for me, being a travelpreneur is as much about taking control over my own life, but also, doing things on my own terms and avoiding those things that I would rather not do.
Absolutely. So kind of share with us, where are you currently in the world, and why did you choose that particular location to, run your business from and to live at?
So, I think that there are, in this world, there are a few different identities. You have travelers, backpackers, digital nomads, and so on. And I think for me, if I were to prioritize my life, travel has always been the top priority, going abroad, visiting other cultures. And so I'm certainly a traveler first. And I think unlike digital nomads, on the traditional definition, I think I move around a lot more than other people. So it's pretty rare for me to spend more than a week or two in any given destination. I've been in Southern Africa now for about 3 months. A very close friend of mine from college and her husband lived here in Johannesburg. So I spent 3 weeks hanging out with them, building my business. I was like self-studying Portuguese at one point. Then I spent 2 months on my own. So I traveled around Botswana and Namibia, and then along the southern coast of South Africa. And I've now met back up with these friends for about a week, where we went to Lesotho for the weekend. Lesotho, there was actually no internet where we stayed, so I had four days where I didn't have internet access, and that was also totally fine for my business. And that can be a real, connectivity can be a real issue sometimes, but the nature of my business allows me to kind of take a few days off, which I think is also important.
Mm-hmm. So actually, I think you touched on a great point there. Because we're so used to having internet all the time. Having our Facebook on our phone. And what did you learn during that time that you didn't have internet for 4 days? What did you learn about yourself, or about the world?
I think one thing about myself is I actually don't own a smartphone, and so my experiences with connectivity and technology are maybe a little bit different than most other people's, because I don't feel this. My friends that have smartphones describe them as having kind of a nagging sense of always having this thing attached to you, and wanting to check Facebook and this compulsion to bring it out whenever you're with friends. And for me, my life is such that if I want to get on the computer, I have to physically take my laptop, bring it into a room, plug it in, and it requires a little bit of effort. So for me, if I'm on my computer, it's like 100% computer time. So that's catching up with friends, it's writing, it's building my business. And then when I don't have my computer, it's 100% socializing or reading or writing. And so I don't really feel as strong of a dependence as other people. And frankly, I didn't really miss it at all. It was 3 days and it was fine. And there was one time in December of 2014, I was on the Andaman Islands, which is in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and didn't have any access to internet or news or television or anything for like 2 weeks. And of course, it felt good, and I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything necessarily. And whenever you do get back after that time off, you realize like not a whole lot's changed. You can always catch up on those Facebook messages or emails, and there's not a real nagging sense that I'm missing out on anything, which I think is also reassuring.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You spent some time working at the University of Texas at Austin, correct? That's right. As a consultant, or as an admissions counselor. So
that's right.
What made you take the leap into working for yourself, and instead of continuing along that path of of academic excellence, and working for an institution or a company? What made you choose to work for yourself?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. Some of my favorite people that I meet on the road are those who have achieved or performed at a very high level, whether it's academics or professionally or athletically. And certainly I was set up for a very promising career within the structure of higher education and college admissions, and it's a job that I really enjoyed. I had a very fulfilling job with an awesome boss. It was super flexible, so I could take time off whenever I wanted. I made my own schedule, so I definitely didn't have that 9 to 5 I hate my life experience. I had a great girlfriend and a loving family, but for me, I always knew shortly after graduating from college that going abroad is something I always wanted to do. So during that 2.5 years with the university, I kind of slowly built a strong foundation to give me some long-term options. So I became a certified English teacher. I'm a scuba dive master. I took the graduate school exam. I lived at home, so I saved up money the whole time. And then when I did the Fulbright grant in 2014, that was sort of a segue between sort of equal parts, like I'm overseas and I'm growing professionally, and it's this prestigious program. But I knew that there was still something missing. I ultimately took the leap into sort of entrepreneurship and self-employment when I realized that, I don't really like being told what to do. I didn't like, doing this Fulbright program where I moved to Malaysia but didn't have a say on what school I was teaching at or who my roommates were or where I lived. And, I realized that I thrive the best in totally unstructured environments. And so self-employment for me is a way to give my life structure and meaning on my own terms, and also allow for a creative outlet, because it just keeps me busy. It gives me something to do. Mm-hmm. To travel for more than a year, you have to be doing something meaningful, whether it's photography or, documentarian, or someone who's service-minded or a nature lover. You have to do something. And I think for me, the business is as much about, something that keeps me busy as it is, a money-making, project.
Absolutely. So, how are you able to travel long-term while building your business? Does the revenue generated from your current business support the lifestyle that you want for yourself?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, I saved up a lot of money during my time working for UT. When I was on the Fulbright grant, I didn't spend much money while I was in Asia, so that whole year was pretty much subsidized. I had a pretty big runway, and so there wasn't a lot of financial pressure for me to sort of generate revenue right off the bat. So I was really fortunate for that. I also invested about 10,000 or so of my own dollars into the company. So it was very much like I'm going all in. It's not like I'm going to kind of mess around. And a lot of that money spent on sort of marketing strategies and things that ultimately didn't work out. And so it was a lot of trial and error, and a lot of things that have worked out for the business have been totally unexpected. For instance, I have a pretty successful YouTube channel and a blog, and I've been invited to write for a number of articles and guest pieces. Like most recent, I just submitted an interview with Cracked.com. I've had an interview request with Vice. I've also done some other sort of college-specific websites, and so these sort of social media outlets were massive, and they're also a lot of fun and don't cost that much money. And so now I'm at the point in the business where I've figured out the marketing strategies that work, that don't cost very much money. They only require some time from me and are also very creative. And so it allows me to express myself and also provide meaningful information to clients and even people who just want something for free, which is fine by me. And so I'm at the point now to where the time that I'm spending in my business is really just sort of building client base and sort of actually making money. And so I've made more than enough money this month, for instance, to more than facilitate really anything that I want to do. So I'm very fortunate that I don't want to describe myself as financially independent, but I certainly have a big cushion, and I have like a pretty healthy retirement account, for instance. And so I've really tried to cross my D's and dot my I's and invest not just in the business for today, but then also thinking long term for my retirement and also my future.
Absolutely. You briefly touched upon when you're first starting off your business, that you might have made some investments or made some wrong decisions that didn't turn out as you had hoped. What is one of the biggest failures that you had when you first started off your business, and what did you learn from that experience?
I think one massive failure experiment, I call it, was print advertisement, because I'm thinking okay, if I'm in Guatemala and Mexico and my customer base is primarily in Texas, how do I reach customers in Texas if I'm not there? And so I'm thinking, print advertisement. And I located 2 different newspapers that very much hit my target demographic, and I really did my legwork, and I got the ad as it should have been, and I don't even remember how much I spent. It's an embarrassing amount of money. I think I spent over $4,000 in print advertisement. Wow. I think it generated a lot of leads, and so that might have been that I just didn't really understand how to kind of close a client or manage. I just didn't know how much to charge. It was just all this. So I'm getting a lot of leads, and I was only able to close, I think, 1 client from print advertisement. So it was almost a total failure. And I tried, and I went into it being okay, I'm just going to try everything that I can possibly think of doing, spend the money, do it, and see what happens, and then reassess things later on. And print advertisement, people warned me, and I was just stubborn and stupid, and I just spent a lot of money on it, and it's whatever, water under the bridge. But yeah, it was in the grand scheme of things a rather cheap lesson to learn, I guess.
Absolutely. So what do you believe is the greatest factor that has contributed to your success thus far?
I think I succeeded at a high level conventionally, both at my university and professionally. And I don't come from a particularly wealthy family. Neither of my parents went to college. My dad drives a school bus right now, for instance, and from a very early age, my parents always emphasized that work ethic above everything else is the most crucial thing. People think they can just travel or sort of half do a blog or a YouTube channel and somehow make money or whatever, but people don't realize that travel is really, really hard work, and especially if you're starting your own business, it's the most challenging thing I've ever done in my life. And you have to work hard. You have to continue plugging away. There are some days where you have a lot of self-doubt, a lot of insecurity, a lot of what in the world am I doing? Am I losing my mind? This is crazy. And you really just have to be adaptable and flexible and stay the course. And once I jumped with both feet in and invested this kind of money and doing it on my own terms by starting the business from the road, failure wasn't an option. My soul's in the game, and I was going to make it work by any means necessary. And I think now that I'm a year into this process, I think just being a good person, continuing trying to leave good impressions on people you meet while traveling, or clients or potential clients or anybody, I think working hard and just sort of being a genuine, authentic person will do wonders, and open up doors and lead to opportunities that you would have never imagined.
Mm-hmm. So, you've been to quite a few countries by now, so what has been the most, stressful or difficult situation that you've had while traveling? Not necessarily business, but just in terms of traveling itself, So you've been to some pretty undeveloped countries, I must say, and I'm sure it was not always easy. So take us to a moment, where you had a stressful situation.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, I think one comment I hate is when people say, "Oh, like your lifestyle is so luxurious, like you're so lucky," and I'm just like, "Screw off!" Like this is actually really hard. And I don't know if you can see on the video, but I have a scar here on my middle finger. I can like flip people off, but I've got a titanium plate and 6 screws that hold this finger together. You can see the scar there. I also have a pretty big scar on my elbow and my pinky. I broke my pinky. But yeah, and anyways, I was driving to school one day in Malaysia on my little like Asian motorcycle, and a guy in a minivan hit me with his car.
Wow.
And so I was like about an 8-hour bus ride away from Kuala Lumpur, and from the moment of impact to finally getting to the capital, it took and then getting the surgery, it took me 30 hours. And so wow. I had a severely broken finger. It broke in 5 places. I went to 2 like nightmarish hospitals before I got on like a commercial plane and like flew on Air Asia from Kota Bharu to Kuala Lumpur. So I nearly lost the finger. I had to do some pretty serious rehabilitation to get my movements in my hand back. I was hospitalized for 2.5 weeks. During that time, I also had my tonsils taken out because I'd had sort of reoccurring infections. And so I had 2 surgeries while I was there. And when I returned back to my community, the man who hit me with his car, not only did he like refuse to take any responsibility for what happened, but he also like didn't even like acknowledge that anything had occurred. And so I had to like one Malaysian colleague of mine and I had to go to like a lawyer like 3 hours away and go through this like very humiliating process of like taking this guy to trial. And it was just like a massive,
wow.
A massive debacle and a long recovery process. And for as fun as this lifestyle can be, like when things go badly, like it can be the most like alienating, isolating experience where you're so exposed and it's like so obviously the case that you're foreign and not one of them. And so it certainly reminded me of my own fragility, but also my own perseverance, because I didn't go home. I did my therapy 6 hours a day every day at home, and I just worked through it and I toughed it out and I didn't let it beat me, and I think that's what happens. You're going to get, sometimes you get, there'll be bumps in the road, or you'll literally get hit by a car or something, and like it's up to you to get back on the horse and keep going. Absolutely. So that was almost 2 years ago, and I'm stronger because of it.
Well said. So, what is your number one goal for this new year, and how do you plan to accomplish it?
Oh, man, that's another good question. I think unlike a lot of other travelers or entrepreneurs, I don't really have any concrete goals. I meet some people who say I want to travel to 30 countries in a year, or like visit all of South America, or make $20,000 a year or whatever. And I think for me, like I really truly take kind of each day as it comes. And this year I'm really focused on my own personal growth. And so I average reading about a book per week. I write, even in the last 3 or 4 months, I've written, probably 50 or 60,000 words worth of essays, professional blogs, guest pieces, you name it. And, in this process, like, it's never been my intention to make a lot of money or to like see and visit cool places. It's just kind of working hard each day, trying to grow and improve as a person. And then sort of the unintended benefits are that I get to visit cool places and meet cool people and like make money and grow my business and get invited to like write crazy articles for crack.com or something. And those are never things that I set out to do, but they've just things that have sort of fallen into my lap by, again, working hard and being a good person.
Very cool. So you mentioned that you're currently trying to read a book a week. So the Travelpreneur Club is made up of both established and aspiring travelpreneurs. So what is one of your favorite books that really resonates with you and that you carry with you that you think would help our audience?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to answer that. I do have actually one book that I carry with me everywhere, but it probably wouldn't be too much help to your audience. Last year I read the complete works of Friedrich Nietzsche. and I'm currently rereading everything he ever wrote, and so I carry an anthology with me. That's sort of like kind of esoteric, like philosophy stuff, so I don't know how much that appeals. One book that really got me thinking and really inspired me, I read it when I first moved to Malaysia, is The Art of Nonconformity. It's an awesome book that I always recommend to a lot of people. One book I just started, and I'm only about halfway through, is sort of a classic that people had always recommended to me, and that's How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think, like I say, I just started it. That's an awesome book. I'm excited to see where it goes, but I think I think you just have to read. Like, that's one such crucial component that I think people miss out on. Is like, there's so many interesting stories out there. Like, every successful business person or anyone that has ever been good at anything is like, you have to read. Like, you have to read stuff and expose yourself to new ideas. And so just read something, whether it's the Hunger Games or philosophy or biographies, it doesn't matter. Just read.
Definitely. I completely agree. So, you talked to, this is me actually my last question. So
Sure.
you talked about you're reading the philosophy books. So, I think it's great that you're expanding your field of studies. You're not just reading about business books or reading about travel or, how have the philosophy books, helped you in growing your business?
Sure. I think one misconception people have about philosophy or philosophers is that they like somehow don't relate to real life, or there isn't any practical knowledge. And certainly there are some philosophers out there that are pretty esoteric or abstract. But certainly, so much of philosophy deals with real world problems or real world questions. Like, how do we, navigate the world around us? How do we be good people? Like, what is justice? What is hard work? These kinds of questions we deal with on a daily basis. And, I think, Nietzsche, he was writing, for instance, in the 1870s, 1880s, and he's sort of the original bad boy. He's the original unconventional thinker. He flipped, basically every paradigm on its head. He's sort of one of the first people that said, you can live a meaningful life without religion or without democracy or without, certain external systems of morality or, constructs that dictate how to behave. And that's what we deal with on a daily basis as travelers and entrepreneurs is going against the grain, taking risks, challenging the status quo, questioning authority, living a life on your own terms. And literally every page that Nietzsche writes deals with these very fundamental questions. And so when I read him, and it just fills me with like so much optimism and energy, and he's such a life affirming author that it's absolutely a practical guide to living a fulfilling and meaningful life. And you can even go back to the classics with the Stoics and Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, who talk about living in a chaotic world and living with uncertainty and overcoming adversity. These are things that you have to do, and these are concepts that people have been working through since before recorded history. And I think getting back to the basics and realizing that like the pop literature of like whatever business book is hot in 2015, probably isn't saying anything that's worth reading. I'll take one paragraph of Nietzsche than like the corpus of self-help books that have been written in the last 10 years, for instance. And if something is standing the test of time and we're still reading it 100 or 1,000 years later, there's got to be something there that's worth digesting.
So I lied. Actually, I have one more question. So I actually asked my Snapchat following. I kind of gave them a brief overview of your business and kind of what you're doing.
Sure.
And I asked them to give me some questions. So I have one question. This is from Super Dirt Bike Guy. He wants to know, what is the best way to market? What have you found the best way to market to your audience?
I saw a post on the entrepreneurship subreddit the other day, and there was a guy who was talking about the power of video, and his observation was that like video is the coolest thing I've ever done, and it was such an unexpected success. And I found to be the exact same thing. Like I hired somebody part-time to do some contract work, some marketing work. I put her in touch with one of my friends in Dallas to like post flyers around businesses, which was like another total failed marketing scheme. And my friend was like, "Oh, has Kevin ever thought about making like a YouTube channel to give kids advice about admissions to UT Austin?" Because like the university doesn't have any YouTube channel or social media. There's nothing that the university is putting out. So if a kid were to YouTube or like Google, like, how do I improve my essays to UT Austin? Like, there's nothing there. And so like I was in Holland, and me and my Dutch friend just like went out and recorded like a few random videos about like talking about essays and resumes and stuff, and uploaded them real quickly. And now I've grown the channel to about 20 videos. I have about 7,000 views. That YouTube channel has produced a number of clients. It's great because the traffic's very organic. It allows me to combine my travel and my business stuff because I'm shooting it from cool locations, and I'll be like, hey, like I'm in Luxembourg today, and like, did you know like Luxembourg's the center of finance in Europe, and so if you ever want to study abroad, like, you know, and you're a business student, maybe you should come to Luxembourg. And
Absolutely.
so that's been a fun thing, man. The YouTube video stuff's been really cool, and it hasn't really cost me that much money. And it's like a very easy deliverable, and it personalizes my business, and you know, allows people to put a face to the email account they're interacting with, because my entire business is done through email. There's no Skype. So yeah, it was like by far the most unexpected and most prudent thing I've done, and I could have never anticipated that this time last year.
Well, I must say, if you've had success on YouTube, you really need to get on Snapchat. Especially, you know,
yeah, it's
marketing
the whole smartphone thing, dude. Yeah,
it's true. So marketing these high school graduates. I mean, Snapchat is growing, a larger audience, but the high school graduates, I mean, they're all over it.
Yeah, man, you're right. Instagram, like, I'm just so ignorant towards all that stuff, and again, it just reminds me I have a long way to go, and like maybe I'll have to stop being so stubborn one day and like maybe adopt a smartphone. But yeah, I'll definitely take that into consideration.
Very cool. Well, thank you again for joining me. I know we went back and forth for some time until you were in a stable environment with a good internet connection. So I appreciate you, of taking the time to talk, and I'm looking forward to seeing where your travels take you next. So I recommend to everyone in my audience to go over to Kevin's website, which is TexAdmissions.com. Even if you're not applying to University of Texas at Austin, he has some great articles on there, highlighting about resumes, application process, what happens when you're, denied from the university of your dreams, whether it is UT or not. I think he can offer a lot of value to the person that's looking for that. So before we go, I want you to share with us one last parting piece of wisdom. What's the best way to contact you? And then we will say goodbye.
The best way to get in touch with me is through my work email, kevin@texadmissions.com. I think that's how you and I have been communicating, Drew. Yeah. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. I always say I'm always willing to invest as much time as someone is willing to invest in me. And so if you ever have questions on how to make this dream your reality, or transition from the working world to a more unconventional lifestyle, I'll be more than happy to engage with any of your viewers. So feel free to put them in touch with me.
And one last parting piece of advice for any travelpreneurs out there.
Yeah, you're going to have some really bad days. Like, some days it's really going to suck. The lows you're going to feel are going to be lower than anything you're going to feel in your normal life. And that comes with the high highs you also experience. And so with those lows, you just have to work through it, realizing it's not always going to be your dream life. And don't give up. Just keep plugging away.
Very cool. Well, thank you again, Kevin. We'll keep in touch, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Best of luck on your journey, Drew.
Thank you as well. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. It would mean the world to me if you would subscribe below and share this video with a friend that you think it would help. If you'd like this interview in audio format, you can click above right there to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher. And don't forget to head on over to thetravelpreneurclub.com for more inspirational content that will help you begin your journey as a travelpreneur. Until next time, take care, my friends.